Well, thank you very much. May I, first of all, thank all those who made this meeting possible. And may I really deeply thank those who were on this table at this rostrum in the various panels, and of course to the way in which Sir David Frost conducted all this. May I thank, first of all, the entities and international organizations who, in fact, it was a very nice afternoon for me, but that's not the point, let's say. It has to be a good afternoon for every one of us here today, namely the institutions who have to deal with this every day on the ground at the national level, regional level, local level, and the international organizations as such. And I thank Dr. Chan for her deposition, and I thank the illustrious Vice President of the World Bank. It's difficult to spell your name, I don't have it here, but you understand. And we had really the framework in which this operates, and of course we can't go on without the work of the Global Fund and UniAIDS and whatever. And I'm very thankful for Professor Kazatskin and to Peter Piot, with whom a very long time ago I started to think about this. And of course I'm very grateful to the participations of all those who took the floor, I said that, but to civil society at large. Really, we keep on speaking about civil society, but my experience now really tells me that the great challenge is to push forward what we have learned in terms of science, in terms of the evidence that we have, by combining the three I's which have been so many times mentioned here today, and I call the attention for national programs. It is not possible, I'm speaking of course not from a technical point of view, I'm speaking from a politician who, although retired, has tried to keep his eyes open. And of course there has to be a relationship between international organizations who deal with this and national programs, and then civil society interrelated to the national programs. Because if we don't have a national framework of programs, strategies, and of course accountability, we have civil society lost in words, important to mobilize, but not definite in terms of interconnection of their activity as helpers to the development of the national strategies and therefore to the national programs at large. So let me focus on 2 or 3 points which were raised today, and it's difficult to summarize, Sir David, but I think I have to do it. First of all, a full commitment. As Ambassador Tybalt said, there is a responsibility to work together at this level. Full commitment of every speaker to fight TB and TB-HIV. The commitment is towards saving lives. And this means that we have full implementation of the basics of TB control, the basis of HIV care and control, and the 12 points policy package for TB-HIV. The commitment, the second point, is of course the commitment for added research, which means financing, which means new drugs, which means new vaccines. And I'm fully, this is personal now, of the conviction that you have to put together private and public partnerships. Otherwise, there will not be companies going with all their rehearsals until the end without in fact having a combination with state obligations and of course international organizations to put things forward. We need this research, we need the new drugs, we need the new vaccines, and we need the new diagnosis capacities for clear. For these commitments, what I think is important to work together is combining a bottom-up to a top-down approach. This, I think, is the lesson of this meeting, the lesson of your experiences up to now, and combining these things, not scattering different approaches, but of course putting the capacity to innovate, but in the framework of a bottom-up and a top-down approach. We have to take into account that the need to fully engage civil society and activists. I heard their voice, I heard their commitments, I've seen the letter signed by more than 200 organizations, and I greet you for that. This is an important political advancement, and at least a second call for action, a second call to get us in the movement. We hope to bring on board the corporate sector, and of course, when we have the capacity to share the practices of the economic sector, I think this is very important to see how they are confronted with many experiences on the ground and how they can, through the social responsibility, but at least also because of sheer interest of their economic activity, they have an extended capacity and experience of good practices that we also can share. And of course, when you think about distribution in some continents, there are beverage companies who have a much better distribution, and I don't want to name the company because I don't think I should, but there is a distribution element here of drugs which is essential, and there's no capacity to substitute that company or those companies who have this distribution. I think a striking point made by one of the most illustrious speakers with whom I have also in the Alliance of Civilizations discussed so many issues, is the empowerment of women. We have to target vulnerable populations, such as indigenous minorities also, and of course deal with the famous definition of the bottom billion. It's a well-known book, but at the same time it's a mobilizing affair. And let me finish by referring to two comments which I think are important. We have to understand the evolution of the donor commitments. And as Professor Kazachkin was saying, we have to realize that monies have gone up, available monies. We have to keep this going up and sustainable. We have to have accountability, and we have to be more efficient. I'm not speaking of the Global Fund, I'm speaking of more efficiency at the results we can show to the donors, because the international atmosphere as far as donations are concerned is not an easy one, as everyone reading newspapers or books can understand. But I think there will be a great leap forward by combining the predicament of millions who die with the necessity of understanding that if we work correctly, then of course we have results, then the donors are justified in doing that activity. If we don't have these open mirrors, so to speak, that everyone is regarding and looking at what the others are doing, I don't think we have a good atmosphere. There is an important way forward, but we have to have in mind that we need accountability and, of course, sustainability. And, of course, benefit from the lessons learned. I think that there are experiences here at the local level, at the national level, which show where the path should lead us. I am now, and this is purely personal, I am now convinced that a really community level approach is essential. And this, of course, leads to the great issue of how are we going to deal with sustainable health systems as a general pattern of future development. I think this is a very big issue, because you can't have results in these campaigns and activities without having some sustainable and implementable health systems which assure the capacity to respond.